This Catholic dude abides.
Episode 23. It's a long one, so we're just going to jump right into it. As always, thanks for listening. Anyone here watch that Netflix movie, Dumplin? Oh my gosh. What a complete piece of trash. I was just floored. And I didn't watch it, by the way. I couldn't finish watching it. It was, and I think I mean this almost literally, it was a political diatribe disguised as a movie. It was all about a fat chick who didn't mind being fat, but other people minded her being fat. So it was kind of a shame on fat shaming. The hottest guy in school is attracted to her and loves her, wants to date her. She doesn't understand why, because she's fat. And he's just like, you're just beautiful. I don't think you're just fat. So you got this whole, again, this whole Derrida studies have helped me. I think this whole binary thing. I think fit is the good binary in the logocentric universe that we came from, and fat is the bad half of that binary, and this was the deconstructionists are going for. I think. I'm not sure where the frick this came from, quite frankly. This, Bill Burr, he goes, we've shamed shaming. You can't shame people for being fat. And I'm not saying we should shame people for being fat. I think we are too fitness obsessed. So I think there's something there, and I suspect that something has resounded with a large measure of our population. But geez, so frickin' Pete's, let's not just deny the fact that being fat is a problem, both from an attractiveness standpoint, but also a health standpoint, and that's just not the way we're supposed to be. And it's not an admirable way to be, like this movie seemed to want you to believe. And it's not admirable for the simple reason that anyone can frickin' be fat. As Bill Burr talks in his hilarious, filthy of course, but hilarious stand-up routine, walk your way out. It's like, do you know how hard people have to exercise and diet to get those six-pack? Like after age 20, it's virtually impossible. Well, anyone can be fat, but not very many people can have a six-pack. I have one, of course, but hey. So then, and this whole dumpling thing, you got that whole fat shaming or anti-fat shaming thing going where they don't even acknowledge that there's any issue with being fat. And then, but then like the turning point of the whole movie is you have who's obviously like a lesbian, and then two fat chicks who have nothing in common besides their weight. They go to a bar that one of the girls' aunts used to like to go to, and they want to see what it was all about. And it's like a good boys bar. And then, I'm not making this is like so effed up. You think I'm making it up, but I'm not. The whole bar is a Dolly Parton drag queen show. I mean, like half dozen, maybe it's a dozen. And some of the Dolly Partons are white, some of them are black. The star Dolly Parton drag queen is black, of course. This movie, and then on top of that, it just kind of sucked. I mean, it was just like, geez, so please get on with it now. But I've been reading like these great reviews and people talking about it, and it's just like, gosh, you're a bunch of freaking liars. It's like that Crazy Rich Asians movie where I went to go watch it because they got these great reviews. Now like rom-coms, and Marie kind of does. Let's go see Crazy Rich Asians. What the hey? It was awful. Absolutely awful. It was just the rom-com storyline. She fell in love with this rich guy. She didn't know he was rich, but she loved him for who he was. And then she finds out that he's not just rich, but crazy Asian rich. And she goes to meet his mom, and of course, shocker, shocker, the mom doesn't like her. And so she decides to leave him for the good of his family and for his wealth. But then the mother does accept her after all. And then as a topper, there was one guy in the family who was kind of coming to her defense, and yes, he was a homosexual. But the people in the newspapers and critics just raved about it. And you know why they raved about it? They raved about it because they were Asians. And this was a coming-of-age movie for Asians in Hollywood. And even though it was just a tried and worn and beat-to-hell storyline with zero originality, except it was placed in the Far East, people raved about it. And that's what it is with Dumplin. You can't trust reviewers anymore. Reviewers don't review based on quality. They review on whether or not it hits other political symbols. So again, Dumplin, Netflix, you guys should be ashamed. You should be ashamed of fat shaming. You should be ashamed of creating that tripe. I'm a bad person. I feel right now like someone who sees an elderly person fall in the middle of the freeway, can't get up, and I just keep walking. And it never crosses my mind to even help the lady up. It's not even like I made a conscious decision not to help her, but I'm such a moral reprobate that it didn't cross my mind to help her until I saw other people doing it. So here's what happened. I'm at my 8th grade daughter's basketball game. This is a parochial school league. We're not talking high stakes basketball by any stretch. And my daughter, she likes her coach real well, but she couldn't care less whether she's on the team or whether she plays or not. So wasn't going to win a whole lot of games this year. I was busy drinking and doing this podcast. So I'm sitting there. And people came in I'd never seen before, which not that unusual. My wife said, "That's the mother of this high school boy's girlfriend." I was like, okay, I think I follow that. And that won't go into all the details, but what it came down to is this mother drove 20 minutes or so to watch her daughter's boyfriend's little brother play basketball in a parochial league. That's what I think happened. And I'm just like, what the freak? I mean, I know for a fact when my kids had boyfriends or girlfriends in high school and those boyfriends or girlfriends are playing the sporting events, I didn't freaking go to the sporting events. It actually crossed my mind a little bit, but I didn't just to make a statement that I don't like to push these kids together. I don't want any pressure on them. If they got to break up later, they got to break up. They don't want to have their parents pressure them to stay together. But honestly, more often than not, it didn't even cross my mind to go. But here, this woman, and she brought like her kids with her, she came to watch her daughter's high school boyfriend's little brother play basketball. And I'm not, by the way, I am not criticizing this woman. If that's what you're thinking, I'm not. I was stunned though. I was like, gosh, what kind of son of a bitch am I? It's like, it wouldn't even cross my mind to go. And if my daughter said, "Mom, you gotta take me to go watch my boyfriend's little brother play basketball in this parochial school league," I would have laughed at her. I mean, it's like, what are you talking about? I'm not taking you to that. In fact, it would have been so outrageous. I can say with 7 kids, none of my kids have never even asked me to take them to such a thing or expect me to go to such a thing. None of my kids have even asked me to go to one of their boyfriend or girlfriend's games. I did go to one, by the way. Now, one of my sons, been dating a girl for years, and we're very fond of her, and she played soccer. I don't really care for soccer, but as far as girl sports go, soccer is one of my favorites. And I did go watch 1 or 2 of her games. So, and I went with my son. I like spending time with him. He was in college, going back watching his high school girls. So I have done it. So maybe I'm not complete reprobate, but wow. I mean, you see someone giving another time like that for something like that, and it wouldn't even cross my mind to do it. So, oh well. I guess you can say different strokes to different folks. I just sit back and wonder, man, what type of reprobate world do I live in? So I read earlier this month that the Denver City Council voted unanimously to decriminalize defecating in public. Let me start by saying I'm not going to read the minutes of the meeting. I mean, there's so many questions here I have. And first off, why do you want decriminalizing taking a dump in public? And I get it. Maybe your cells are overcrowded and there's no room for them, and it is kind of a Mickey Mouse type offense. But I'm not sure I want to send a message that this is in any way, shape, or form okay. Okay. Secondly, why? I mean, if you have so many people taking a crap on the streets that you need to decriminalize it to unclog your jails, you got a hell of a bigger problem than people taking a crap in the streets. I mean, if this is gonna unclog the justice system, I think you gotta start taking a look at your septic system. Third, who the frick lobbied for this? Is there like a crapping in public lobby out there I don't know about? Who came in and said, you know what? We need to stop putting behind bars people who hang a rat in public. Yeah, I know. It's some left-wing do-gooder who feels bad for the homeless. That's obvious. But why? Well, I mean, you know, they're probably looking for a place to stay anyway. If they don't have a place to take a crap, they just probably just go to the jail. So, you know, you're talking to a guy who was a big fan. And some of you will be turned off by this. I'm a big fan of urinating outdoors. And if you go to udemonpodcast.com, you'll see I wrote a whole article on it, citing some medieval texts on etiquette, you know, pertaining to urinating in public. But the number one thing I say in that article is you gotta be discreet about it. You don't want people to see you. And if you're where someone can see you and they can tell what you're doing, you're probably a pig. Now, you could be like way out, like in the middle of a golf course or something like that, or out in the field, and some people might see you from 100 yards away and figure out what you're doing. That doesn't make you a pig. But if you're flinging it out there, like on Main Street in the middle of a parade, well, you're just a hog. Anyway, congratulations, Denver. I'm glad you got people taking a dump on the streets now. And I'm guessing since it's decriminalized, I mean, maybe it's still a civil infraction, so maybe you're still giving them a fine, but criminy. Alright, let's do some lightning segments. A few of you have told me you don't want to spend over $2 on a gin and tonic you make yourself. I get it. And I have a better option for you. This will cost you about 75 cents. Get New Amsterdam Gin. This is an excellent lower mid-shelf gin, like $20 for half gallon. It's what they call a Western gin. It's citrus forward, so it has almost like a citrus flavor to it. Gin purists, by the way, hate the Western style gins. They say they're not true gins, they're merely flavored vodka. Because keep in mind, gin is nothing but vodka with juniper. If you're covering up the juniper taste entirely, you really have a vodka. But that's not what New Amsterdam Gin does. It just has a different flavor to it, and I think it's excellent. It's possibly one of my favorite gins, right up there with Bombay Sapphire at less than half the cost. And you do that with just a fresh, Faygo tonic, 99 cents for 2 liters. Put in a slice of lime and a slice of lemon, put them both in, and you get yourself really a killer gin and tonic for 75 cents or so. And while we're at it, you can also do a hybrid. Use the New Amsterdam Gin with Fever Tree Tonic. That's a real good combination as well. Here's a word for you: phallogocentrism. I'm not going to spell it, but basically it's phallic with logo with centrism. And it's not phallocentrum. Phallo-logo-centrism. This word cracks me up. Logos is associated with the Word, with Christ, with Christianity. Specifically the rational component of Christianity. So that's what's being attacked here with this word by the feminists, phallogocentrism. phallus obviously refers to penis. So the feminists are attacking the rational penis. Let's face it, the modern deconstructionist feminists, they don't let reason, logic, or even common sense get in their way. One thing we all know is the penis is not rational. Now, in her defense, when she says phallus, she's referring to the symbolic authority of mankind, not just the penis. Although I think it's probably the penis that the man uses to assert or insert his authority. If you hear the phrase toxic masculinity, that's phallogocentrism. Well, in light of Ocasio-Cortez's inroads, I hope they're not inroads, but her idiocy, I thought, well, I better start rereading Frederick Hayek's Road to Serfdom. And I'm enjoying it. It was easy. I first read it in high school. My dad, I don't want to say he made me read it, but he pretty much told me I really needed to read it, so I did. And I understood it, kinda. He talked to me about it, so it kind of walked me through parts of it, so I'm rereading it, greatly enjoying it. But what really surprised me is one of the footnotes praises Hilaire Belloc's The Servile State. Hilaire Belloc and Chesterton, they were what people call distributists. Distributists, like in today's world, they hate libertarians. And distributism is kind of the Catholic form of economic thought. I'm not sure it should be, but it often is. But today's distributists just hate libertarians. Some even go so far as to call them heretics. And here you have Hayek praising Belloc's Servile State. And it's justifiable praise, by the way. Belloc's Servile State is just a shockingly good book. But I'm going to warn you, if ever you decide you're going to start reading Hilaire Belloc, bring your thinking cap and bring a lot of patience. He's a hard writer to read. And I don't think it's just because there's 100 years difference here. I just found him very difficult. I heard a few weeks ago that the Buddhist mindfulness teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, Thich Nhat Hanh is transitioning. That's the phrase they use. Instead of dying, they say transitioning. And that's too bad. I've read and listened to some of his stuff, and I like him. They say he's Buddhist. He's a Buddhist. But I think he's more of a secular type mindfulness. I mean, his Buddhism and the mindfulness he teaches can be absorbed 100% in the secular world with no metaphysical background whatsoever. From what I can tell, I'm no expert on it, but anyway, I'm not mentioning the fact that he's transitioning to talk about Thich Nhat Hanh. I'm mentioning it because the phrase or the word transitioning, it's like they want to soften the word dying, so they now call it transitioning. And I understand, in Buddhist metaphysics, transition probably makes more sense. I respect that. But it's still kind of funny, though, that, when I read these Western sources, they talk about, he's transitioning now, and it's like, let's not use the word dying. Whenever our culture has something that's not favored, something that we don't like, something that's unpleasant, we change the word for it. I mean, let's go back and look, 100 years ago, we called people with handicaps, we called them the halt or the lame. And then it became handicap, and then disabled. Now it's impaired. It's a sad state of existence people have, and when you go to describe it, words get affixed to them. But because those words describe such an unpleasant situation, they then become pejorative or insulting. So then the semantic shift starts. You see the same thing with mental retardation. Moron and idiot, imbecile, those were clinical terms. Imbecile was the worst one, by the way. That was like the lowest of. And then retard was fine for a while, then mongoloid. Retarded person was fine for a while. I mean, back in the 1990s, a very good friend of mine had a severely retarded sister, and he told me retard's very derogatory. He'd get kind of mad if he used it, but he's retarded. He goes, that's just merely descriptive. Well, now we are 20 years later, and he'd be considered a Neanderthal, even though he loves his disabled sister very much, but to call her retarded would be an insult. It became mentally disabled for a while, and now I think it's challenged. I think that's the correct term. But again, it's a sad state of existence, but we need to describe it. We put a term on that's neutral, and then it becomes pejorative. So we change it. Wino or bum became street person, became homeless. Now there is kind of more descriptive, although I'm not sure homeless is more descriptive than street person, but no matter. You know what other name has switched frequently? The name for blacks. It started off like after Civil War with the N-word, which that was always insulting and demeaning. And then I went to Negro. When I was a kid, I still remember Negro being used with, 100% social acceptance. Then I went to colored, then I went to black, then I went to African American. Now, rest assured, I'm not saying, because blacks, colored skin have something wrong with them. That's not remotely my point. And for those who aren't aware, that would be true racism, and that is actually condemned by the Catholic Catechism for a very good reason. But no matter, that's not what I'm saying here. What I'm trying to figure out is, why is it? Why do we keep shifting the name for black people? And I don't know the answer. I'm still flushing it through my own head. Part of me wants to say, well, it's just a power game by people on the left who want to make us change how we refer to people just for the sake of making us change. Part of me think maybe it's this whole, Jacques Derrida disfavored binary thing. The deconstructionist left would say, well, white is the good side of the binary and black is the bad side of the binary because of the way the power structure has set the game up. And therefore, black then becomes pejorative. So you switch over to African American. The binary was white on the one side and then colored. And then so we had switched over to white on one side and black because the disfavored one, because of the cultural construct, the cultural, the power structure, those terms then became pejorative. I honestly don't know. I know that I was totally on board when they went from colored to black. I was like, that makes sense. I mean, they're not really black, they're brown. Whites aren't really white, we're cream colored. So whatever, white and black, single syllable. I like the symmetry. I'm a symmetry type guy. But then when they switched to African American, I kind of lost patience. I saw that got switched over for 7 syllables. I don't think so. Hey, that thick Haknai reminds me of an old joke. These two old guys had a pact that when one of them died, the one who died would do everything he could contact the other one from beyond the grave. So Walt dies, and a couple weeks later, Leo's phone rings. And Leo picks up and says, hello, and he goes, Leo, it's Walt. And Leo says, hey, Walt, you're calling from beyond the grave. And Walt's like, yeah. And Leo goes, so what's it like? And Walt goes, well, it's not bad. He goes, I get up in the morning and I have sex, and then I eat, and I take a nap, and I get up and I eat, and I have sex, and I take a nap, and I get up and I have sex, and I eat, and I go to bed. Leo's like, oh, that's not bad at all. He goes, so that's what heaven's like, huh? And Walt says, heaven? I'm a bull in Montana. I was sitting around earlier this week, just thinking of my history of humor, what I started listening to when I thought something was funny and where it went, and I realized my first comedic influence, so to speak, and I hate to put it that way, it sounds so pretentious, but it was Bill Cosby. I listen to Bill Cosby albums all the time. He wasn't raping chicks in those albums, by the way. They're just funny and fairly basic comedy, I guess I'd call it. But my first real comedy influence, basically I was coming of age, and I'm talking like age 12, age 13. If you've ever seen the movie Stand By Me, you realize at that age, 11, 12, 13, 14 maybe, those are highly formative years. But my comedy influence during that time was Steve Martin. His Let's Get Small album came out when I was 12. Wild and Crazy Guy came out when I was 13. And those of you who weren't around back like before the internet, you have to envision what things were like back in the 70s and even 80s. You know, I'd come home with a new comedy album and would put it on the living room hi-fi. We didn't call it hi-fi, we called it the stereo or the turntable. And we'd sit around and for the next 45 minutes listen to a comedy album, the vinyl. I must have listened to those Steve Martin albums 10 times each. It's from my perspective, just thinking back on it, I think Steve Martin was different. He was different than other comedians. I mean, he was kind of a wild and crazy guy. And go back to like the fundamental definition or analysis of humor, and you can see G.K. Chesterton saying this and many others. You know, humor is a juxtaposition of things that either don't go together or that you don't expect. Let's look at two hilarious Steve Martin lines. Quote, "Before you criticize a man, walk a mile in his shoes. That way, when you do criticize him, you'll be a mile away and have his shoes." That's pretty funny. You don't expect that second part to go with the first part. You expect it to be some sort of, compassionate, empathy type thing, but no. C. Martin turns it. It's pretty funny. Another quote. "I believe that sex is one of the most beautiful, natural, wholesome things that money can buy." That's hilarious. Actually, they're both hilarious. But again, a juxtaposition, a startling turn in the sentence or the passage. That's like humor from time immemorial. But Martin took it to another level. I mean, he, with his song King Tut, the wild gyrations, the dancing on stage, it was just kind of weird. And I can give you another quote, which I think kind of falls in that kind of weird type spasmodic type thinking. "I thought yesterday was the first day of the rest of my life, but it turns out today is." Again, he had that juxtaposition going there, but that's just getting to be on the borderline just absurd type humor. If you read his book Cruel Shoes, which as soon as it came out I bought it, my friends and I read it in junior high school, and I didn't actually get it, but probably didn't get it because it was just absolutely banal, stupid, whatever you want to call it, but it didn't make sense. It was so ridiculous in many ways. But I want to fast forward to the 1990s. Seinfeld. That was literally, by pretty much every critic's analysis, a show about nothing. There's a whole book written about shows about nothing by Thomas Hibbs. That's excellent, by the way, if you want to pick it up. Napoleon Dynamite. I think that's a movie about nothing. I mean, you're literally talking nihilism, where nothing happens. There's no quest. There's nothing. And I've kind of questioned, hey, what the heck happened here? Well, heck if I know. I'm still thinking about it. I'm looking at kind of the philosophy of Jean Baudelaire, where he talks about the whole world is just simulation, where TV and the movies, imitate life. But then we watch so many screens, we take our cues about life from the screens, and then the screens then in turn imitate our lives to put on the screen, and then we look at the screen and then imitate what's on that, and we basically devolve into a increasingly unreal type existence, kind of the Matrix. So I'm kind of looking at that line of thought. I find it kind of interesting, but that's not where I'm going here. I'm going to look at a 1986 book by Neil Postman, who I've mentioned before, but his book Amusing Ourselves to Death. His central point in that book is very Marshall McLuhan-like. His central point is that different media can do different things. Or, more precisely in this book, certain media has severe limitations. And again, keep in mind, media means anything that extends one of our faculties, or here, anything that carries words, or purports to carry meaning. That's what he's talking about when it comes to media. But the classic statement, I think, in this book, where Neil Postman drives his point home is, you can't use smoke signals to do philosophy. That's obvious. But Postman's book is, you can't use movies or TV to do philosophy either. The screen, Postman points out, can't even portray the act of thinking. I touched on this a week or two ago when I talked about that horrible movie On the Road. Pointing out that I don't think it was the producer's fault. On the Road was about the beatniks, and the beatniks basically got drunk and had sex and did drugs, and then went home and wrote about it. and thought about it and then wrote about it, introspection. Well, the first part's just stupid, not much fun to watch. Plus, maybe it's in real time. That could be hilarious. But the second part, you can't even put on screen. But Postman's central point is there are some ways of truth-telling that are better than others. And actually, I think that's common sense. You have the smoke signal, but I think everyone realizes, hey, just trying to convey truth on the TV screen is not going to be the same as, or not as good as conveying in a book. And so Postman, in this book, Amusing Ourselves to Death, is exploring what happens when you go from a reading culture, which we clearly were from the 19th century. My gosh, I like 19th century literature, but goodness gracious, were they wordy. Dickens, Dostoevsky, Hugo, those are monster books. Like 19th century literature means monster editions or monster volumes of works. But let me read you how Postman kind of explains why this is. Why reading is better at conveying truth than screens, and why reading is better for thinking than screens. Quote, "To engage the written word means to follow a line of thought, which requires considerable powers of classifying, inference making, and reasoning." Unquote. Watching TV doesn't require that. Watching TV is easy. I think we all know it's true. A couple months ago I made a pledge to myself. Every night I'm going to sit at my desk at home and I'm going to read a serious book, non-fiction book of some sort. But I haven't done it. I probably do it 3, maybe if I'm lucky, 4 days out of the week. 1, I'm busy. But 2, honestly, some days I get back from the office and I'm just whipped. And I'm just like, F it. I'm going to watch Pawn Stars. I'm not going to sit there and read. I'm just too tired. Reading takes energy. Long reading takes stamina. Takes concentration. So anyway, as our culture then evolved from text to screens, we veer away from a thought-invoking and taxing task of reading. The taxing task of reading, that's hard to say. We start turning away from that task. And as we careen further away, our minds get less serious. Because reading is serious business. Watching TV isn't. And as we increasingly get away from reading and more towards screens, our minds get less and less serious. Therefore, the entertainment gets less and less serious. Hence, you have the rise of people like Steve Martin, and then later on like Seinfeld. It's like, because we become, I don't want to say we get stupider. I just don't think that's true. I don't feel it's true. I don't feel people are dumber today than they were 50 years ago or 100 years ago. But I think we are sillier. And I think that has something to do with the medium. We're not reading as much. We're watching screens a lot more. And the more we watch screens, the more the humor gets degraded. And I want to check myself there. I'm not sure that the humor gets degraded. It's that humor can get real low. And I'm not talking like pornographic or filthy humor. I'm talking like the Seinfeld type humor, where it meets its viewer. The viewer is in nothingness because the viewer doesn't ever engage himself intellectually because he's not reading. And so we find our whole culture absorbed by screens kind of at this nihilistic low. And that's where the humor goes to find its viewers, to find its audience, and to entertain them. Anyway, I know it's pretty confusing. I'm still working my way through these various thoughts, but I want to thank Steve Martin for putting me onto this little jaunt. It allowed me to pull that Thomas Hibbs book, Shows About Nothing, and the Neil Postman book back off the shelf, and it was good to go back through them again. Alright, that's a wrap. Check out the Twitter feed, check out the Facebook page, go to udemonpodcast.com for show notes and other information. As always, thanks for listening.